All right, I'd like to call to order the May 20th BPW meeting. And this is a regularly scheduled one, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Anyway, start with the invocation. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage the meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of employees and our community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that might affect the employees, staff, citizens, and businesses of our community. And continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish is for pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first order of business is, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we have a few folks in the audience. Do we have any comments from the audience? All right, haven't heard none. We'll go right to Darren's manager report, please.
I really have two items I'd like to bring to everybody's attention. A couple of them one has been in the news, and that's one of the rules that is coming up soon. It's called the PFAS rule. And what happens is with the EPA, in order to try and make our lives safer and better all the time, one of the things they do is they take a look at our water, and they make sure that our water is being tested appropriately, especially if there's new stuff that comes on the horizon. Well, the new stuff on the horizon right now is called PFAS, PFAS. And I will encourage you to look that up. Those are what are some big, long perfluorocarbon extra X chemicals. What these are is they're considered forever chemicals. And what they are really good at is they repel water. And in the natural world, water is the great solvent. It takes care of all of that. But if it repels water, it just doesn't break down. And so these chemicals stay with us, and they stay in the environment for a very, very long time. What the rule that's going to be coming out, and the EPA has finally kind of settled on it. There's been, whenever they come out with these rules, there's lots of discussion, and there's lawsuits, and there's all kinds of things that they have to prove. So it takes them a good 5 years before it comes into fruition. Currently, that rule has been propagated by the EPA, but it has not been propagated by the state of Missouri. So right now, we are in a holding pattern, waiting to know exactly what the state of Missouri is going to require us to do. Now, there's approximately 6 different PFAS chemicals. I've got them in my manager's report. There's PFOA, PFOS, PFNA, PFXHXS. There's also Gen X chemicals, and there's a mixture of 2 or more, PFNA, PFHXS, okay, I'll leave it at that. And I can't quote all of them, but if you go again, I would go online, there's several hundred different subsets of chemicals that fall under each one of these categories. I will also tell you this, one of the things that's very difficult is if you look on the right-hand side of that chart, the maximum contaminant levels. So what happens is they're able to go through and they test for these, and then they say, here's how much it is, and then they set a limit. Where's that maximum? It can't be above this number. What they're measuring to is 4 parts per trillion when it comes to PFOA and PFOS. It's 10 parts per trillion when it comes to the other 6. I think we need to recognize what a part per trillion is. There's kind of 3 ways that I've learned to think about it. If you were to go from here to the moon and back, 1 part per trillion is 15 inches. If you were to take and go around the earth, travel around the earth 600 times, 1 inch is a part per trillion. If you were to take Cardinal Stadium and fill it up entirely with white golf balls and put one black golf ball, that's approximately 1 part per trillion. So we're talking about numbers that are just so very, very incredibly small that we're kind of waiting to see what the state is going to tell us what we have to do. What are the actions that we have to take if that is found? One of the greatest comforts that I have is that there's really two ways of getting rid of PFAS out of water. One is ion exchange, and that is taking our current costs, and that would multiply that by probably 5 times. The other is carbon filter. So the very fact that we have a granulated activated carbon filter that we're putting all of our drinking water through gives us some comfort. Now that some comfort comes back to that idea of part per trillion. When you do the testing, where is PFAS? PFAS is one of the most common things. It's in our clothing. We use it to take and make it waterproof. We take and we have it at the airports for the firefighting foam. It is on your frying pan. The reason your frying pan is non-stick is because some of these chemicals that they use there. And so it can come from just about anything. The person that takes the test has to have clothing on that has not been washed in detergent. It has to have been rinsed. It cannot be new clothing. You cannot wear perfume. You cannot wear underarm antiperspirant. You cannot do, there's a huge list of what you have to do just to take the test so that you're testing the water, not the environment. So there's a whole lot to this that's going to be very, very tricky. We're going to be following that rule. Any questions or thoughts on that?
What kind of let me think here. Do we have a system now that monitors it at all?
We've taken, so what I have it, again, in the board packet, what the last time that was measured was in 2012, I believe. It's on the state Department of Missouri, MDNR. And here is the results from that. And you'll see that all of those PFAS, all of those were non-detect when they did that. And that was back in 2012, I believe. 2013, not 2000.
So that was before carbon.
Yes. So they've also, and I will tell you, they've gotten better at their testing, et cetera. So, but at that point in time, that's the last test that we have that shows what it was doing. Okay?
Yeah, I just read this week in the Wall Street Journal that the fire department's equipment now is being evaluated for the same issue all over the country.
Yes.
So it's something we all have to deal with.
So we're watching it. We're going to keep everybody as informed as we can as we get that information as well. Number 2, we have our electric grid capacity. At the beginning of April, there was mid-April, we had what was called the capacity auction, resource availability. What this is MISO, who we're a part of. It's the Mid-Continental Regional Organization that makes sure that there is all of the transmission, all of the generation that needs to be had from Canada all the way down to Texas, Louisiana. And we are in Zone 5. We are right in the middle of that. They take a look, and they have changed their construct. They've done a couple of things. Number one, they've made it seasonal. What they measure is they say, here is the amount of generation that's available. All of the generators have to report what they have, such as Ameren and all of the other generators throughout that entire area. They then take and measure also what is the demand. And the demand they look at is what is the peak demand of every single retailer in that MISO area. We are one of those. We're the ones that we buy that power from generation and then we distribute it. What has happened is in the past, there's more generation than demand. That's a good thing. And the capacity cost is usually $10 or $15, etc. With this new construct come April, they also take a look at your own zone. We are Zone 5. Zone 5 is specifically Missouri, the state of Missouri. And it's only about a third of the state of Missouri, mainly the eastern edge of it, and we're a part of that. And we're therefore in that zone. The other thing that happened is that in late April, Ameren, because they were being sued by an environmental group, they're going to be required to shut down Rush Island. Rush Island is approximately a 1,200 megawatt per day coal-fired generation plant. They announced right at the end of April that they were going to be shutting down. And what that did is that took that number of generation versus demand, and they pulled it down below. And they pulled it down not in the summertime. Summertime's usually the one that we have the most concern. But it pulled it down below come fall and spring, the shoulder months. And so with that, we are now going to be paying a different number when it comes to our capacity charges. When it comes to summer, our summertime charge is $30. The wintertime charge is 75 cents. But the spring and the fall capacity charges are $719.81 a megawatt. And with that, that's going to have a impact on us that we cannot manage without a rate increase. And so that's what we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to be looking at perhaps a legal avenue. Has MISO truly been doing their due diligence and making sure that this market and the construct is appropriate? We're going to be looking and seeing what we can do to improve our position so far as if there's any other capacity or other generation here in the state that we can take advantage of. And we're also going to get an outside consultant to help us with the rates to make sure that we are doing what we can and being as slim as we can. We still have, we believe that we're just as tight as we can. Everything we can do to shave costs and to protect our customers. But this is a cost that it's coming immediately, and we're going to have to be able to manage and pay. Any questions on that?
I think we discussed this once before, but I want to make sure if those charges go down, then we would be able to go back to the people and lower
Yes.
the rate increase as well.
Yes. Now, one of the things that they do with this money, the money that we're going to pay into MISO turns around and pays 2 generators. And that's because they want to incentivize, if this is a large number, and generators want to come in and do this. One of the things so that's what this is. They want to incentivize. So if they can get that in the future to drop off, the generators come back and they put power back online or can build quick enough, then that number will come down in the next auction. And we would pass that right on. We don't see that happening very quick for the next 2 years. We believe within 3, there's some things that'll change. Perhaps even there's some political things that could change to help benefit this. But having said that, we can absolutely go back the other way. If it drops and comes back to normal, we would drop those rates in a heartbeat and wouldn't be a problem whatsoever. And frankly, you as the board, you're the ones watching this. You are our regulators to make sure that we're counting every penny appropriately, that we're not wasting our monies, we're doing everything we should. Any other questions or comments? Great question. Thank you.
How much generation does Marquand Lake have? Is Rawls County eating all that up?
That's Associated Electric, I don't know. It's Northeast Power.
Oh.
There you go.
Okay.
But yeah, and all of those were added in that. And when Rush
So they're
Hour
included
went-
in that
Yeah.
auction, okay.
All right, I have nothing else. Thank you.
All righty. No other questions? We move right along to Matt Munslinger and the operations report, please.
Good afternoon. You'll see again, our number of outages increased over the past month. We had some tree events, some squirrel events, some equipment malfunctions. But all in all, our reliability is still fairly high. We continue to work with the contractor on a 3rd Street viaduct replacement. Jared's been working with them as they drove pile so they don't get too close to our lines and cause damage. We've been switching lines on and or off depending on where they are, and we'll continue to do that as they get the girders set and start pouring the deck. So water system wise, you'll see our production numbers were up again last month. We had a lab inspection as it relates to our ability to do our own back T test. We were recertified by the Missouri Department of Public Health in that. We continued our flushing of fire hydrants. We completed almost 370 of those, and hopefully we'll get those completed within the next couple of weeks. We did have a contract crew here in town that did the annual exterior inspections of all of our water tanks, and they also did washouts and interior inspections on 2 tanks. We do the washout and interior inspections on a 5-year rotation to comply with MDNR regulation. On the wastewater side of things, you'll see April of 2023 compared to April of 2024, we completed or treated about the same amount of sewage, but you'll see in April of 24, because of a rain event, we had one day where we had 10.3 million gallons go through the plant. You'll see an even larger number when we do the May report in June. We're continuing to do our phosphorus testing as it relates to new regulations. Darren alluded to the PFAS at the water plant, but phosphorus is going to be a big deal when it comes to the wastewater plant within the next 6 to 8 years. So we co-sponsored a spring cleanup of downtown area with an association or in cooperation with the Parks Department and the Chamber of Commerce. We've done that for a number of years. That allows us to count that event towards our MS4 compliance as far as it is public participation, public outreach. And we had 40 participants in that on April 20th. They cleaned up from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. that Saturday. And then the rest of the report's pretty much as normal. We continue to update and maintain our computer systems and metering program. Yes.
Just under the SSO elimination, TRE's KK design, is it a 15-foot diameter sewer that we're looking at lining?
No, 15-inch.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was a little shocked. That's a big sewer. Just a typo. That's okay.
That's all I've got for the operations report. Unless
Okay,
there's other
anybody have questions? All right, man, if you stay there and handle the projects report.
First project I'll talk about is the media or the gravity filter media replacement at the water plant. That's something that we had tried to get ARPA money for. We were unsuccessful in that, and so we bid it out last fall. And by the time they got materials ordered, they only arrived here a week or 2 ago. And so they took filter number 1 out of service, removed all the media, broke out the under drains. They're in the process of, they repainted the interior of the filter. And then just this week, they're starting the reinstallation of the under drains. They've got manufacturer's rep here making sure that they do it correctly and it meets all their specifications. As part of that, and you'll see in your board packet, there's a meter that was replaced on the high service side. That was one that we found last year that was reading about 270, 280 gallons high. And so it was affecting our unaccounted for water. And so we replaced that one. We also installed 2 new mag flow meters on our low pressure side of the system as well within the last couple of weeks. And so we're working with our integration provider to get those brought into our programming at the water plant so that we have on-demand reads of those. And that ties into number 2, our water loss. Again, it tends to bounce around a little bit. We're trying to tighten up some stuff. Big thing now is we've got multiple locations within the system that we're measuring and allowing our consultant to build a model, and so that we can get some predictive failures, get the ability to predict where failures are occurring or hone in on water loss a little bit quicker, and so we can continue to keep that number low. On downtown SSO elimination project, as Bill pointed out, we're not doing 15-foot diameter mains. It's 15-inch diameter mains and smaller. That's this program. We're doing about $500,000 worth of lining. They got a crew in town right now doing the televising, or the cleaning and the televising. That will allow them to identify any defects that need to be dug up and repaired prior to the lining, so they can get that liner pulled through. And then once they get the okay from that, they'll build the liner, and then the actual company, SAK, will come in and actually do the lining. They anticipate from start to finish that'll take about 5 weeks. So we don't anticipate that lining beginning until maybe July. Another project we got going on at the wastewater plant is the rehab of clarifier number 3. Last year it was down for a period of time as we replaced one of the bearings that it rotated on. This year we've got it down, we'll have it down. We're going to paint all the metal components of it and also line all the concrete components of it. That clarifier was installed in 1993, and so we're just trying to prolong the life of it. The coating that we'll put is a slick coating, so nothing will hold on to it. It protects the concrete and prevents any further degradation of that. Hopefully, it'll only take roughly a month to get that completed once they get here on site. North Street, again, phase 1 portion will be up to the old bridge approach. Contractor looking to start in September. Phase 2, which is the remaining ARPA money, it's under design right now. And then the phase 3, which will be the WRDA money. We had a conference call with the Corps of Engineers just last Friday, and so we understand how that process is laid out. It'll probably be next spring or late winter, early spring before that project gets built or bid out as well. So that will coincide with, we'll understand where phase 2 is going to end by that point, and so that project can take off from there.
Can I, on that project, just to know, we really appreciate the coordination we're doing with the city. The funding is coming through the city, and so all of that, both the North Street portion of it, the next portion that's coming through Senator Graves, we really appreciate what he's done there, Representative, and we're grateful there. That money's going to have to come through the city side, and they're managing that, but really Matt's done a great job of help keeping on contract, et cetera, and doing all of that. So really appreciate the work with the city on that.
And that will impact the downtown festivals, particularly Oak Life, at some point.
They're aware of
Down
that, and
North
so
Street.
North Street will probably be shut down, yes.
Yeah.
It depends on how weather cooperates on that one, how quick it can get through there. The initial phase, I think they've got till the end of the year to complete it. So I think their plan is to blow through it pretty quickly and have the resources to do so. So
Did the Corps portion of that take care of any concerns over high water? Are we far enough up the line?
I can't remember exactly what river level the Corps portion takes care of. I mean, you'll still have stuff. I'd say it's the low 20s, but it's still backing up into the older portion that we're going to replace as part of phase 1.
Okay.
Now, when we do move forward with phase 2, it'll be a different type of construction because you're not having the pressure pipe generated by the high river level. So we'll be up considerably above top of levee. So hopefully it'll reduce the cost of that installation, but we'll have some additional rehabilitation costs with our Mark Twain Avenue asphalt. And then continuing to wait on the tie line grant application, and then purchasing materials for the Indian Mound substation replacement. So, but it's still on schedule. So that's all I've got. Unless you all have any questions about any of the projects.
No, it's not a project, but it was a year ago. I noticed that during the torrential rains, or right after the torrential rains, the holding area behind 200 South Main filled up and drained back down. So I'm assuming all those pumps are working as they should.
To be honest, those pumps have not been turned on.
Oh,
They only are turned on when the gates are closed at that same location, and then there's a gate at Center Street that is closed. So what you probably witnessed there was just the sewer was full, and it just backed up in there, and then once the water
yeah, it
subsided,
wasn't
it
there
went
very
out.
long.
We don't those two gate locations aren't to be closed until it gets to.
Yeah, that must be a great entrance.
And just so you know, when he says sewer, it's storm
sewer.
Yeah.
Not sanitary.
But that storm sewer isn't required to be closed off until 18.1 on the river level.
Okay.
And we've kind of been holding off on that. I mean, we've bumped it right there pretty close. One time this last time, it only got up to about 17.6. And so if it's going up and coming right back down, and relatively no rain in the forecast, we probably won't turn them on.
Yeah.
But if the river shows that it's going to continue to rise, we'll close that and get that pumped out.
Okay.
So, but last time they were operated, everything operated correctly. They passed all their tests that we do on an annual basis. So,
Good to know. Thanks for clearing that up. Anybody other have any questions, observations about Matt's project?
Nope.
None? Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Moving right along to Paul's presentation on finance.
All right. Financial report for April 2024. Real quick, I wanted to, before we get into the balance sheet, go down to the balance sheet. It's on page 19. Real quick, high-level reminder. So when we talk about the balance sheet, we're talking about assets and then liabilities and equities. So assets, again, are things that we own, things that belong to us, positive things such as cash, inventory, accounts receivable, cash that we expect to receive in the future for services provided, hard assets, tangible assets like our trucks and things that we have out in the field. And then the offset of that would be liabilities, or things that we owe, things like accounts payable for expenses, chemicals, things that we buy, accruals, accrued expenses, which are expenses that we will recognize at a future date, such as vacation and sick time for our employees. And then long-term debt would be our revenue bonds and leases that we will have to pay on for the foreseeable future until those expire. And then the net of your assets and liability is what's called equity. And equity each year is either increased by your net income or decreased annually by your net loss. So that's just a quick and dirty run through of the balance sheet. The income statement, like we've talked about with our budget, consists of operating revenues, which is money coming in from services that we've provided in all three funds, and then expenses, which is money that we're paying out. Purchase power would be a big one, and then everything else when it comes to operating expenses, such as our labor expense, chemicals, all the various things that we buy to operate daily. So just a real high-level reminder of that. So we'll go back up to our balance sheet for April. So compared to last month, we did just have a very small increase overall in every category. But utility-wide total assets were about 0.4% more than the previous month and are down overall by about 3.7% from a year ago. With the income statement, we did have a net income utility-wide of about $94,000 for April. The primary driver would have been the water fund for April, as it had a very positive month, and we'll talk about. Specifically in the electric fund, again, this month revenues did come in just slightly lower than what was budgeted, and purchase power costs and operating expenses in the electric fund did finish very close to budget. So the net loss overall was $30,000 for electric. The positive month in the water fund was driven by higher revenues, which did exceed the budget by about $12,000. And then in the sewer fund, it also had higher revenues. However, higher operating expenses in that fund did offset the higher revenues, which led to a positive net income, but it was slightly less than budgeted for the month. So looking back a year ago, net income this year was about $144,000 less than last year. We did have all three funds perform worse this year. Primary reason was operating expenses, which were up by about $187,000 compared to a year ago. Revenues specifically were up by about 10% across all three funds. And specifically in electric kilowatt hour sales, like we've been tracking, we're up about 4.5% from a year ago. You'll note last month we talked about the significant decline in electric usage. For March, we did do a little bit more digging and did find that there were 3 fewer billing days in March of 24 compared to March of 23. That'll often happen. It just depends on when the billing date falls compared to a weekend or a holiday. And so we did have 3 fewer billing days, which would have led to the lower usage for that month. And then obviously that would have likely been made up in April. And so that's why we had the higher usage in April of this year compared to last. So year to date, we, as you know, are a fiscal year that starts in July, and so we're through April now. So 10 months into fiscal year 2024, the net loss was unchanged in the electric fund at $2.4 million. Revenues specifically are 4% less than budget, and purchase power costs in electric are about 3% over budget. With the water fund, it is just slightly behind its budgeted net income. And the sewer fund does have a positive net income of $231,000. However, that is significantly less than budgeted. Again, the story there is lower revenues and higher operating expenses. However, both of those only vary from their budgets by 2%, so nothing drastic. Compared to last year, the net loss overall this year is about $884,000 more than it was at this point last year. Total revenues, as we would expect, are up by about $963,000 due to the rate increases that we did back in October in electric and water. However, net purchase power in the electric fund is $1.1 million more this year than it was last year. And like we've said, pretty much every month, that continues to be due to the Prairie State MISO credits that we saw really jump last year. So far this year, those are $3.6 million less than what they were a year ago. Got our rest of our information on there, our check register and credit card statement, as well as our investment listing, cash reserves, and everything else that we include every month. If you look down in the dashboard on page 24, about halfway down, our debt service coverage ratio that we look at, we did see improvement in all three funds there. which was positive. However, the ratio in the electric fund remains at a negative number. And so again, the budget that we've approved for fiscal year 2025 does project us meeting that debt service coverage ratio requirement next year. I think that's all I wanted to point out this month. Does anybody have any questions on anything?
Anybody?
No, I just had a comment. Again, I noted under the expenses that carbon was at $107,000. That's for the 90-day change out, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
So again, it's about $1,000 a day, a little over, that we're spending polishing that water for the community. It's an expensive deal, but it's a good deal.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Haven't heard none. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
Moving right along to unfinished business with Aaron and stormwater.
Well, thank you very much. And I'd introduce our mayor. Appreciate you coming in. If you want to take the microphone over here, I will.
What happens when you get old?
We've been having discussions and brainstorming and trying to see how we're going to move forward. We had last year gone to the community with the Stormwater Action Committee, put together what we thought was a very good plan. And Mr. Coker, we appreciate you being here. He was a part of that. There was a lot of discussing and blood, sweat, and tears and everything else. We came up with a plan, presented it to the community, and it failed at the ballot box. Mayor and I appreciate Mr. Mayor Louderman being here. We've come kind of to the following conclusion, and what we have here is a copy of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Hannibal, Missouri. And what the mayor and mayor's proposed, mainly his brainstorm, that's a good idea, is that what we'd like to do is go back to the charter. And in this, there's 2 paragraphs in section 11.07, powers and duties establishing rates of the Board of Public Works. In that, the first paragraph, which sort of gives out the responsibility, it says, the Board of Public Works shall have the authority to construct, manage, supervise, and control the municipal electric, water systems, and wastewater treatment and collection systems, artificial underground stormwater collection systems, and any future additions and improvements thereto, and of any other public facilities which the City of Hannibal may hereafter construct, of otherwise operate, own, or acquire. Now, with those duties, construct, manage, supervise, control, it does not say fund. You go to the second paragraph. It reads, the board shall have the exclusive power and the duty to establish rates and provide for the assessment and collection of charges for municipal electric, water, sanitary sewer systems, or other utilities, or the product or services of any other plant or works of the city which the board may have under its supervision, control, or operation. The board shall have additional powers, duties, and functions as may be conferred upon it by ordinance. Now, in this paper that I have here, you'll see that it was in red that we added the word stormwater systems. And that is the proposal that we would anticipate taking to the community once again, that we would move the ability and authority for us, the Board of Public Works, to have the power and authority granted to us to be able to set those rates. The second part of this is that we, as the Board of Public Works, it's going to be our job to go back and set some rates to begin with. And what we're looking at doing, what I'm going to propose, is that we use the very same methodology that was brought about by our Stormwater Action Committee, which are fixed rates. They're set, and what we did is we fixed them on a class. And I think it was somewhat confusing to say, well, it's based on an electric class. I think education-wise, we've got to share that, or perhaps we call it a stormwater class. I don't know how we're going to do that exactly, but that's what we need to do, is come up with a flat rate. Pretty much exactly what the Stormwater Committee did. The other part of that is, when we looked at setting these rates, we recognized we were going to have to go to the community, and that getting this to pass was going to be a very, very heavy lift. And so we were looking at a 10-year span based on the engineering of Black and Veatch that we needed to have approximately $3.5 to $4 million a year for that to work. We also knew that to begin with, we only needed to say 800,000 to begin with, and then maybe $1.5 million, and then it would kind of go up to where we're doing projects, et cetera, and that amount will change. And so we can start off, instead of going right after the $3.5 million the first year, we can reduce that. And then we can have small incremental increases or decreases. Again, that's at the point I made earlier, you are my governing board. You guys are you're the voice and eye of the people here. If we're getting too much, we can cut it back and we can reduce rates as well as increase rates. But that's the plan. Mayor, what would you add? Clean it up now.
So the reason we didn't look at this, to start with is because the Missouri Supreme Court, in a roundabout way, said that you can't do stormwater like you would a regular utility, like you would electric, water, and sewer, because you can meter those and it's easier to make that. But instead of outright saying that you can't, there's a path that we can use that we can make a fourth utility, which would be stormwater. So you would have electric, water, stormwater, and wastewater, sewer. And right now I have James looking into the path, doing that. I trust James on that. James is the person that got us the red light cameras, the only legal red light cameras in the state of Missouri, because he followed the path that he knew we had to do. And he feels that we have a strong path to do that. So I think this would go over much better with the citizens, because it would be a monthly rate, not a yearly, not a tax, it's a fee, just like you're paying for electric, water, sewer. And everybody that resides in the city of Hannibal or uses us will be paying on it. Everybody, not just the people that own houses or businesses. It'll be schools, churches, hospital, everybody is included, because they all pay utilities. So that once again spreads it out more, and I think people will perceive that as a more fair way to do stormwater. Now there are things we have to hammer out. We have to look at different aspects to it. It would require a charter change, which we would have to put in front of the people, because we would have to add a fourth utility and put that under the Board of Public Works. And the wording there would have to be such that they understand that it's just a monthly fee. It's not a yearly fee. You don't pay it, and we would break down where everybody falls under those categories. I think a set rate is the fair way to do it. And once again, it's not a tax, it's a fee. So, my goal, our goal is, it'd be nice if we could have something on November's, but it won't be. It'll be April before we have it on there. Before we could propose an ordinance change or a charter change. And it would be I think the fact that everybody would be included in it will make it easier on people to vote for it. So that's our proposal. I've been talking to Darren about it. I've been talking to James about it. I think it's the best way to move forward on stormwater. I think outside of getting funding from the government, which we know that's not going to happen. We lucked out with North Street and Mark Twain Avenue, getting that money. We've requested more on their new appropriations, but you just never know what you're going to get from them. This way we have a set plan in place. We have a set structure in place, and it's something that can just become part of the whole system. We don't have to worry about going back to the voters for, a sunset tax or or whatever, we've got it as a fee, and it would just be part of the Board of Public Works system. So this is something that, over the next couple of months, I'd like to come back and update you guys on where we're going with it. I'm trying to meet with Darren as often as I can, and James also, to make sure we've got everything covered. As you know, when you're dealing with the state, you've got to have everything in order for them to let you go forward. So I think this is a good plan. And I'd like you guys to invest yourself in it and to back that. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
So you're really looking at the legal language that's going to take longer than, that we missed the November ballot?
I think we will miss the November ballot. I think the path that we have to thread through the legal language is going to make it a little bit longer than what we anticipated. So if we could put it on next April's ballot, that would be.
So
My
on the
goal.
ballot will be the charter change, and then you're envisioning a breakdown of rates in that charter change, or
Basically what
something
we'll-
general?
Basically, you don't ever want to put your rates or fees in the charter, okay? Because then
Makes
you're
sense.
locked. But what you're doing is you would say it would be a flat fee with the Board of Public Works, the ones to determine the fees based on whatever formula we come up with that makes it fair.
Okay.
And the charter change will be simple. We won't be drawing it out. There's not going to be a whole lot to it. It'll just simply be, we're going to change the charter from 3 utilities to 4. And we'll explain a little bit about the 4th utility being stormwater, underground stormwater, and how the fees are going to be set. And then that's the language it'll take.
And the state has to approve that language, is that?
They would have to, yes. It would have to follow their legal
Ballot.
rules. And like I said, and like James said, that when the Missouri Supreme Court said no, they didn't say no as a no, you cannot do it, period. There's a legal path to do it that way, and that's the one we're gonna explore.
Okay.
Any other questions?
The only other thing that I have is to say, the addition to this paper talking about the change for stormwater is that you as a board had discussed that we wouldn't mind having a 5th member on the board, and that you guys agreed with that, and that the mayor could probably take that, and
It's just
Mayor Pro Tem could take that back to the city council.
I'm just not a fan of even boards. I understand that if you guys ended up 2-2, the mayor breaks a tie. But it should be 5. It should always have been 5. We don't have another board in the city that has an even number. And we don't, I don't think we should have an even number here. And it has nothing to do with anything how this operates. I just think it looks better if we have a 5 on there. And it'll be an outside person. We had toyed with the idea of the 5th person being an actual city council person, and we've backed away from that since the charter is pretty specific that the Board of Public Works is here and the city is here. We don't want to cross that. That becomes a whole different thing. So it would just be another regular person that we would nominate to put on here. So, and that would require a charter change also. And I would envision putting that on the same time as the stormwater, or if the council so likes, we could put it on in November and just have it done.
Mayor, just for the record, November ballots are very, very expensive to be
Yes.
on.
Yep.
Because you have Republican, Democratic, and things like that, so.
So what you're saying, if it's cheaper to do it in April. Can understand that. So, I mean, both of these things, I think, are a plus for the community. And I think it makes it makes sense, the fifth person, and it makes sense that we use stormwater as a fourth utility instead of trying to continually pass a tax on people to pay for stormwater. Because at this present time, that's a dirty word. And people, no matter how well it's explained to them, no matter how well we go about it, the minute it has tax in it, they're going to vote no. And they voted no pretty strongly this time. And it was a pretty good plan. You know, it was well thought out, you know, and I just think that people were looking at it that way, and they didn't look any farther than the word tax. You know, so I think a stormwater utility will benefit the city greatly. And the fact that if it's a fee and a utility, everybody's involved in it. You know, there's nobody excluded. You know, whether you're the school system, the churches, the hospital, non-for-profits, they all pay utility fees. So they would all be included in it. And I think people will see that as a fair way to do this. So once again, if you have any questions on either one of them, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, the devil's going to be in the details of how this ends up getting put together.
Sure.
And we've had discussions with James, and he's brought up cockleburrs all over the place. And if he can figure out a way to smooth this, it sounds like
it's not a straight path by any means. And like I said, when we did the red light cameras, it was not a straight path there, and he did a very good job maneuvering that. Hence, we have the only legal red light cameras in the state of Missouri. So, and I think James can handle this, and he feels pretty confident he can.
all right. It's awesome.
I have nothing else.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Okay. All right. Moving on, do we have any comments from the city attorney?
Nothing to add at this time.
Okay.
Just took the notes.
All right. Anybody else have anything to talk about before we go into closed session? All right. Yeah.
I'm not representing the concerned citizen for wastewater, but I was on that committee, and I applaud the efforts that the mayor is going to try to get this set up. Our issue last time we met was the representative legal counsel that we had indicated that our hands were tied on how we restructured this because of the way the charter was put together by the city and the way the fees were going to be set. I appreciate the mayor, complimenting the committee on the fact it was a well thought out plan. We felt like it was a good plan. We felt like it was well presented to the community. I will say this, though, your landlords and landowners are going to be your hardest project to go. I've talked to 3 of them in the last 3 weeks, and it's come up just in casual conversation. One guy said, I own 30 properties. He said, I couldn't afford it. He's not realizing that was what his tenants were going to help him absorb, as opposed to him, because it was a property tax on what he owned, not tenant, because they could come and go. I agree that a separate utility should have been established years ago to cover this. And so I just, thank you for your support to our committee, but also thank you to the mayor and Darren and you guys for trying to dig into this and solve this problem. Because the news just yesterday talked about flooding along Bear Creek in the south side of the city. May not mitigate all that water, but it's definitely going to take a lot of it away and put it someplace where it can go, as opposed to in somebody's basement or a friend or family's house. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? If not, I guess I need to get a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session pursuant to section 610.021312 of the Missouri Sunshine Law. The meeting shall convene in closed session to just discuss personnel and contracts. Within the closed session shall be the board members, Darren, Matt, Paul, Courtney, and Andrew, legal counsel.
All right, have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. We're in closed session. Thank you.